and it's a small sacrifice to make for the greater good of long-term success. There's a stat floating around out there that says only 59% of the US population can cover a $1,000 emergency. That is insane. And you know what's almost more insane? That was me 5 years ago. Around 5 or 6 years ago, I was under the impression, for whatever reason, that an emergency fund needed to be 6 months worth of your salary. So if you made $100,000 a year, you need a 6-month emergency fund of $50,000. That kind of shows you how naive I was even 5 years ago at the age of 42. I am not ashamed to admit that. I was a very late bloomer in the world of personal finance. That is also why I feel compelled to share what I've learned in the past few years in hopes that it'll help some of you out there. It's a scary step to take sometimes, to admit your own financial struggles or challenges. It was scary for me to face those, and I have a feeling it might be scary for some of you guys too. So the goal of this video is a very simple one. I want to explain my thought process into how I calculated out what my emergency fund should be for 3 to 6 months. I'm going to walk you through my mindset on how I started my road to personal finance recovery through the building of my emergency fund. The foundations of it are really, really simple. You need X amount months of expenses. So if, God forbid, you lost your job, you were in the hospital, something crazy happened, and you could not work, you could not bring in income, what do you need to financially survive for X amount of time? Most YouTubers, most people online, Dave Ramsey included, would recommend 3 to 6 months of living expenses for an emergency fund. When I first began to build mine, that's where I wanted mine as well. It seemed like it was a lofty goal, but still attainable in some aspects. So in order to calculate your emergency fund and how big it should be, you have to first calculate your expenses per month. And these are like your bare bone expenses. This does not include eating out, gift giving, vacations, any of that nonsense. This is just to survive, to weather the storm in case you lost a job. What do you need to not fall behind on bills and expenses? This will not be cookie cutter for everybody. Everybody has different expenses, different situations. So I would encourage you, after watching this video, if you haven't yet done this, sit down at the table, old school pen and paper, and start to script out what your monthly expenses are. I'm going to go through examples of probably the most common expenses just to try and cover as many people, as many options as I can. So what comes to my mind in terms of monthly expenses and bills are the following. The first is housing, monthly rent or mortgage. The second are going to be utility bills, electric bill, gas bill, water bill, cable and or internet bill, HOA, if you have an HOA, and that should cover your utilities for the home that you live in. Now let's break down and explore some other bills. Car insurance, streaming services, cell phone, credit card minimum payments, personal loan, student loan, minimum payments, child support payment, alimony payment, gym membership. You better have one of those. I'll be coming for you. Those most likely will be your most common monthly expenses. Now, in addition to that, your other expenses that might be a little bit more fluid. Transportation. This would include gas for your vehicle. If you don't drive, it would include the cost of Uber, bus fare, cab fare, whatever you might use. Food. What does it cost you to grocery shop only to cook for yourself for a month? That should pretty much cover what your expenses and bills should be. Now, some of those things, it might be easier to break up by week. For me, it's easier to budget by week for gas and for food, then multiply by 4 or 5 to get the monthly figure for that. And then some of those other bills, it's much easier just to calculate monthly. You get your bills for cable, electric, mortgage or rent, gas. Those are generally monthly bills. Water bill, for me, water and sewer is combined into one and it's quarterly. So I just take that quarterly number and divide it by 3, and that gives me my monthly need. So now we'll take all those expenses and add them up. And there you have your monthly expenses. If I left anything out, feel free to add it in, something I might have forgotten. Again, if you have alimony, child support, those sorts of things that you have to pay, you have an obligation to pay monthly, student loans, better pay those back too, then factor those into your monthly expense equation. Now, if you're starting from zero, what I would recommend is have a goal of 3 months of expenses saved. A lot of personal finance success is built around the right mindset and having the right psychology behind it. Now, going back to my suggestion of 3 months, I think this is important from a psychological standpoint because it gives you enough of a cushion in case something happens and you need a home repair, you lose your job. You have a cushion there that's enough to kind of get you by, but also gives you that pillow that you can lay your head on that says, okay, I can breathe. I'll be okay for a little bit. 6 months should be your stretch goal. It's always about what if. What if I lost my job? I was in a car accident. I'm on long-term disability. I'm only getting 60% of my income. I can't live on that. What if, what if, what if? After I achieved my 6-month emergency fund funding, then my goal was at least a year. I believe it's important to look at this fund as an insurance policy. This is an insurance policy you built for yourself in case something happens. Again, what if? And I'm sure if you're watching this video and you have no fund, you're thinking to yourself, this is impossible. But when you start, when you accumulate that first 500 and that first 1,000 and that first 5,000 and then that 10,000, you will feel so invigorated with your success of that accomplishment. You will want to keep going and you'll want to do whatever it takes to fund that as soon as you can. I mentioned in a previous video about having to take on side jobs to either pay off debt faster, build your emergency fund quicker. That might be something you have to do. And it's a small sacrifice to make for the greater good of long-term success. I do feel you should attach a time frame to building your fund to a fully funded account. Whether fully funded to you is 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, give yourself an achievable, realistic time frame. It might take you a year to accumulate 3 months of expenses. It might take you 2 years. And once you have that plan to paper, when you see that it might take you 2 years to accomplish that, it might light that fire that you need to then say, okay, 2 years is way too long. I need to accomplish this in 9 to 12 months. What do I have to do to get there? Am I delivering pizzas 2 nights a week? Am I going to work at my local gym and realize that I'm more swole than everybody else is 2 nights a week? But you have to do whatever it takes to get that account funded. You will feel so much better when that account is fully funded to where you want it to be. I personally felt so much better when it was at 6 months. When I got to a year, I was finally like, okay, I can stop. I am good. Life can come at me in any way, shape, or form, and I'm protected. I'm insured. I am good to go. So once you get fully funded, the question will then become, where do you put that emergency fund? My recommendation is a high yield savings account. You want that fund to be accessible 24/7. You never know what's going to happen and when you have to access that money. Having that fully funded emergency fund will truly allow you to get a better night's sleep. The other piece that it does for you when you succeed at building that fund, it makes you realize that achieving financial goals is completely possible as long as you put your mind to it and establish a plan. And just by having that achievement after saving and building that fund, after it took you 6 months or 12 months or whatever the case is, it's such an incredible feeling. It'll make you feel like you can do a lot more in terms of improving your own personal finance. I would really encourage you all, after watching this video, sit down and do it old school, pen and paper at the kitchen table. List out your expenses, write it down, calculate it out by month, then multiply it by however long you need that fund to last. 3 months is probably a great starting point, and then you can build from there. Saving money is not easy, And the question is, do you want to be one of the 59% of people that can't cover a $1,000 emergency? Or would you rather be one of the few people that can cover expenses for a year? Thanks for watching today, guys. That's all I got. If you have a second, please like and share this video. Also, consider subscribing to my channel. Check out my previous content. Drop your comments in. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experiences with finances, emergency funds, and all that fun stuff that life has to offer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys soon.